what's your next level and what's your ultimate impact of how you want to influence the world?
My next impact is the same impact I've been on for the last 25 years. And it is to help people to understand that in any given moment, we all have a choice. We can continue to react from stress and fear and overwhelm, or we can stop, we can slow down, we can take 3 to 10 deep breaths, and we can choose love. Because love is the most powerful healing force in the universe.
Welcome to Influence Unlocked. I'm Sherry Tree, your host, and I'm so excited today to be with our amazing guest, Bryan Post. Bryan, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Sherry. So excited to be with you.
Well, you're a phenomenal rock star. First of all, you are the author of several books, but we're going to talk about this book right here, From Fear to Love, sold over 1 million copies, about helping people who've been through the foster care system find love, right?
That's right.
Yes. We're gonna unlock this influence together, because this is a really powerful story, and I think probably the timing in the world is critical, important that we find ways to give these amazing human beings the best opportunity we possibly can.
Yeah, I love that, because the book it's a parenting book. And it's for adopted and foster parents to understand how our fear-based practices keep ourselves from creating love-based environments, which are healing environments for children. So then if you're a foster child and because of your early life experience, you're actually wired for fear, and you have a society and a family unit that is parenting you from fear, then you never get to find love. So when you say helping these people go from fear to finding love, that's truly what it is.
Yeah, I mean, that's huge. So before we get into it, we're going to unlock a little bit of influence with you to get started, and I'm going to ask you to crack your code, okay? So these are the bank cards, my friend, and what I want you to do is I want you to just simply sort them into your preferred order of most important to you to least important to you. Okay, this is going to help us connect on the show. I'm going to deconstruct it a little bit, but more importantly, you're going to see I have a special surprise for you coming up in our show after you do this.
Super cool. There you go.
Okay, cool. So you're saying that your bank code is action first, followed by knowledge second, nurturing third, and blueprint last, right? I got your bank code right? Okay. All right, cool. So now, and you'll notice part of our tagline is make people matter, which is what you're doing. But I'm going to give you another gift right here, which is our kids edition.
All right. Okay, right? That's perfect.
And kind of what we do on our side, on our nonprofit, is make kids matter. And what's cool about those cards, they're the exact same cards, only with pictures and icons instead of words.
Oh, look at that.
Right?
Yes.
So now we're going to talk a little bit about make kids matter.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
How did you get influenced in the first place to even caring about this topic? Let's go a little bit into your background.
I think God influenced me because I was conceived to a mother who was not married to my biological father. She got pregnant out of wedlock. She was married to another man. And I believe that's what started my wiring to understand what I do from the very beginning. And then I was in foster care for a couple of placements, and then I was adopted. And then I had a sister who's probably the biggest part of my whole story, is that when I met my biological mother 37 years later, the first thing she said to me is, I loved being pregnant. She said, I didn't drink, I didn't smoke, I ate the right foods, I got plenty of exercise. I have 3 half siblings. I'm 53, I have a brother who's 54. I had a sister, she passed from cancer 8 years ago. She was 55. I have another brother who's 56.
Oh my gosh.
So she truly loved being pregnant. But because of circumstances, she couldn't keep me. I was actually supposed to have been aborted. She didn't abort me. She kept me, and 37 years later when I found her, it was only her and her oldest sister that knew that I existed. And so I had a deep wiring of knowing that my in utero experience was good. So what that does for an infant's brain at a very early stage is it allows them to regulate stress. So when I get older, I can regulate stress more effectively because I have a foundation for a hormone called oxytocin. Oxytocin is your brain's anti-stress hormone. It's the hormone through which love happens. Now, my sister, on the other hand, which is probably the most important part of my story, she was conceived to a single mother. She was 3 months premature. She weighed 3.5 pounds, and she spent the first 3 months of her life in an incubator. So her earliest experiences were all stress and all fear. And so when my parents adopted us, our parents loved us very much, but they themselves were very traumatized individuals. When we would get stressed and they would get stressed, so when we would misbehave and they would get stressed and correct us, it was usually through hitting and yelling and things of that nature, or whipping. My dad whipped. He had a leather belt and he'd whip. Now, because of my in utero experience, the foundation for my ability to recover from stress, I could go into my bedroom, play with my little He-Man figures, and I could recover. I could relax. So my thinking could come back online. My short-term memory could come back. My sister, because of her in utero experience, after she would get whipped or hit or yelled at, she couldn't regulate her stress. So research says it takes up to 48 hours, 36 to 48 hours for high levels of cortisol, our stress hormone, to clear the body-mind system. So 36 hours, you're already back in school. If you can't regulate stress and now you're into school, she's immature. Now she's getting in trouble at school. She gets in trouble at school. The teachers call my parents. Now she's in trouble at home again. And before you know it, I'm growing up in World War III. It's yelling and hitting and yelling and hitting and yelling and hitting nonstop. And so I had firsthand experience for that. My behaviors as a child were actually worse than my sister's, but I was regulated enough not to get caught 90% of the time. The 10% of the time when I did get caught, I'd get the whipping, I'd get the grounding. But 90% of the time I didn't get caught. 90% of the time she always got caught. Mm-hmm. It was only 10% of the time that she didn't get caught. So that was my really my motivation. It was my wiring, it's my DNA for understanding human beings and stress and fear in just a completely different way.
Wow. Now, how did you take your childhood experience, which, wow, and begin to shift it to how do you help others?
Oh,
what was your goal behind that?
I started as a mental health professional just because it seemed like a natural thing to do. Mm-hmm. I had a great mentor. He kind of led me in mental health. And then when I started studying attachment theory and trauma, I was already working with families and with children. But then it all made sense because it tied into my experience as an adopted child and as a child who had gone through trauma. And so then I'm working with these families and I'm starting to see things differently in my work with them. And I'm starting to feel things differently. And then because the most traditional things for us to do with children are consequences and behavior modification and timeouts and yelling, those all 98% of adults in society feel like it's okay to hit a child who's 2 years old or older. 98%. So that's still our dominant paradigm. But I was thinking and I was feeling differently. And I said that there's got to be a different way. And I was able to reflect on not only my own experience, but I was able to reflect on also what I was learning from neuroscience and the decade of the brain for how parents could understand themselves deeply enough to now understand your child deeper, in a deeper way.
Wow, that's deep. In the foster care system, so my system in bank is all about people, personality types, and a values-based system. Do they treat the child as one size fits all where everybody gets the same type of treatment? Or do they try to really understand that child, their child's needs, the personality type, and maybe the match to the parents or the families, or none of that is taken into consideration?
There may be lip service to that. And let me tell you, I've been in this field for 30 years. There may be lip service to it, but the actual application of it is non-existent.
Wow.
And it's unfortunate. Because what you've done with bank, I believe, can just open the perspective and lens of understanding for how parents are showing up, not only for how parents are showing up, but also for how their children are showing up, to give them a deeper way to relate, which helps them build stronger relationships. And relationships are the most important thing. We're biologically engineered for relationship. I try to tell people, relationship is everything. It's not the behavior. It's the relationship. As long as you have the relationship, you can always influence your children. But if you lose the relationship, you lose everything. So this is a relationship key.
That's exactly right. You know, I built this to build relationships with my customers, my clients. I would use the bank code and ask them to sort these cards into their sequence of values, right? This is not a psychological profile. This is a values-based assessment. It takes less than 90 seconds. And I would do that so that I could communicate more effectively, connect more effectively, and then ultimately convert. Well, I started having people going through my sales courses coming back saying, this just saved my marriage. And then it was like, this just made me a better parent. And I was like, how did it do that? The family came to me and said, this just prevented a suicide. And I was like, whoa, what's going on? Because this was something I didn't anticipate, was this code of influence worked not just in the boardroom, so to speak, it worked in the living room, in the bedroom, in the home. And I had a family, a gentleman came to me. He was one of our certified trainers, okay? So he comes to me and said, Sherry, you're never going to believe what just happened with bank in my own home. He said, first of all, I was only using this for business. He was from Sweden. He said, I'm in action. My wife's in action. Our two oldest kids are action personality types in their dominant position. My youngest son, 6-year-old, is a blueprint. And how I discovered that one day, I was coming down the stairs to leave, and my 6-year-old son said, Dad, why are you a liar? And the dad was like taken aback, like, whoa, what do you mean I'm a liar? And the son said, well, every single time you say what time we're leaving, we never leave at that time, you're a liar. And all of a sudden, Robert was able to connect the dots that said, oh my gosh, this training that I've been using in the business realm suddenly hit home. The blueprint, when you say what time you're leaving, they take you for your word versus it's an approximate like, hey, we're leaving at noon, but it could be like 12:15, you know, like always running late. He said that moment changed my entire life because I started realizing I'd been parenting my son wrong for 6 years. Based on the wrong code. So he switched the way that he began parenting and started parenting him as a blueprint, knowing that, for example, blueprints want to be prepared. Soccer games coming up on Saturday. By Wednesday, all of his clothes were washed, folded, soccer shoes organized, ready for game day 3-4 days in advance, giving him the peace of mind in his nervous system as a blueprint to say, I'm ready. I don't need to stress about it. Versus he said his daughter was flying out the door on game day saying, has anybody seen my shoes? Right? Totally different behavior based on bank codes. Now let's talk about how this applies in the foster care system, matching to parents, or your book, moving them from fear to love. I'm sure has the essence of this built in to having that child feel seen, heard, and understood.
100%. One of the things I like to say about my work is that it's simple, but it's not easy. Mm-hmm. So you've taken a concept and you've distilled it into what's basically a simple personality hack. Mm-hmm. And parents spend years trying to understand their children's personality.
Goosebumps.
And so you're basically handing them a way to conceptualize their children. And I can even think, because adopted and foster children, in all of it, all people have to have a modicum of control over their life because we have to have predictability and we have to have consistency because it helps the brain to feel safe. Adopted and foster children really have to have it. So that's really where we struggle. And so I think of things like parents creating a schedule. Well, if a parent were to create a schedule, and I think you probably already have this done, but if a parent created a day's schedule and they put it into the app that you have that now identifies the schedule according to the values of each child, it could give the parent the insights, the code, into how to implement that schedule in the least stressful way. That would be amazing. Amazing. It's just like real taking this And this is not simple, but you've distilled it into a very simple, digestible way to make what would normally be something really complicated, something really simple to understand. This is very exciting. So if they could take the bank code and just apply it. I mean, I even have an app. It's called Bondify. It's a AI-powered parenting support app. I want to become bank code certified.
I want to work with you on this. Like I said, our nonprofit is Make Kids Matter, right? So this is a collaboration happening live on our podcast right now. But if we could make a difference for these children, let me use a real life scenario based on my limited experience. I did not come from the foster care system. My sister, I was sharing with you privately off camera, had 4 children of her own and had a couple special needs children, which led her to foster care, which led her to adoption. And she ended up adopting 20 children from around the world, different countries, different, a lot of these children had challenges, came from alcoholic parents, or they were missing limbs, or who knows what. I remember one time she came home with 4 kids from Ethiopia. Like she couldn't break up the family. She took all of them. And 24 children she raised, and she was an anomaly everywhere she went. But like to see those children grow up and be fed and loved and educated in a way that turned them into really amazing adults who had relationships, who are having babies and building their families when the world would have discarded them, sadly. Right?
Sherry, let me tell you something that just happened this morning.
Okay.
My Uber driver shared with me that he had been in 15 foster care placements. When you're in 15 foster care placements, you don't get adopted. And he did not get adopted. And
yeah, goosebumps everywhere.
He went on through sheer will, determination. He said he never drank and he never did any drugs, never smoked. He's an outlier. So he went on to create a company that he was doing $300 million a year in revenue, and he eventually sold. And he's got 3 daughters now. And he said, my daughters signed me up for this because they said if I'm not doing something, I start causing problems for them. So he said about once a month, I'll get out and I'll drive the Uber. And he shared with me that his daughters still don't know anything about who he really is. As soon as we're done, I'm going to send, his name's Scott. I'm going to send this to Scott. And I'm going to say, I'd like for you and your daughters to take the bank code, because I think that that's going to be the first step into them understanding you. And it touches my heart because so many foster and adopted children go through their lives not being understood. And my sister that I was talking about earlier, that's really a catalyst for the work that I do, she was eventually killed in a car wreck before she could really get it all together. And she was starting. And then I remember my mom, the night before her funeral, my mom said, you know what your sister always needed, but she never got? And I said, what's that, Mom? She said, understanding. She said, we never understood her. So when you talk about, with foster, in the foster care system, with foster children, just giving foster parents a really simple way of thinking about their foster child. It just gives them insights into their personality that may not be everything, because it's not everything, but it gives them like a foundation of understanding that could save a child like Scott from going through 15 foster placements and living on the streets to maybe finding a forever home, because every child deserves to have a family.
Yeah.
And this is such a beautiful concept. I would love to help make that happen in some way.
Thank you, Bryan. I'm going to help. So the story that came to me one day, one of our certified trainers came and said, I want you to know that the bank system just prevented a suicide. That was the first time I'd ever heard that. And I was taken aback. I'm like, what do you mean? And tell me how. And she said, well, the family was actions, mom, dad, sister. The son who attempted suicide was knowledge, okay? And our bank trainer intervened. Now, she's not a psychologist or a psychiatrist, but she's bank trained, and she went over to that family's home and found out exactly what was going on, cracked the codes of the family members, cracked the code of the son who had attempted suicide, explained the bank system and how they each worked, including how the knowledge type works, which this is the very smart person. Sometimes they get labeled the nerd and so forth, right? They're incredibly smart. And wow, I could go deep on this, but at the end of that session discussion, the son who had attempted suicide kind of sat up in his self-esteem and he said, Mom and Dad, I'm not broken. I'm just a K. And by the way, I'm smarter than all of you. So why that was like this special moment is suddenly, emotional intelligence is a combination of two things. It's self-understanding, self-awareness, and ability to self-regulate. So if we could give the child the access of their own code, and again, this is not a psychological profile, it's a values-based, like here's what's important to me. And it's not DNA. You don't inherit your sets of values. You get to create them on your own. If the kid had their own self-awareness and ability to self-regulate, meaning I know what my code is and I can regulate appropriately when to be this code or that code, I can shift, okay? And then if they could know the code of the parents or the families that they're getting placed into, here's what the mom is, here's what the dad is, here's what the siblings are, and here's how I interact differently with each of them in a way that matches that versus conflicts with that. Like we have a relationships course that talks about opposites attract, opposites attack. There's polarity in these codes where if the kid is getting placed in a home, and let's say that they're action personality type and they're getting placed in the home of a blueprint, there is a disaster getting ready to happen. It's a train wreck getting ready to happen. This person fights against all the rules. This person mandates all the rules. Total conflict. This person is going to constantly be bucking up against the rules, the curfews, etc. And there's going to be a lot of conflict. And then likewise, the nurturing and the knowledge people, this one is really heart-centered. They want touches and hugs and feel good, soft, sweet conversation. This person is intellectual, they're cerebral, they're in their brain, and they don't know how to connect emotionally. This person just needs a hug, and this person has to explain, and they don't even like touch. And so when you start putting together people without the explanation of the operating system that comes with it, wow, now you just have to guess and stumble and fumble. And, if they don't have the skill sets to navigate that, then you have the conflict and the breakdowns and the placements that keep changing. And now they're questioning their self-worth, and wanting to take themselves out.
How cool would this be to be a family-based board game?
Yes.
That
I dream of having that.
You create repetition.
Yes.
Because the brain only changes in two ways, repetition and emotional impact. A game like that could give both.
Oh, yeah.
That would be super cool.
Totally. We have gamified it internally when we're certifying our trainers and whatnot, but to be able to bring it to the families, we built the relationships class, dating, parenting, marriage, but we can extend this further. And I think we are some great leaders who are passionate about bringing it to other people and how we can assist you with your work. So where do you go from here? Like as we start to wrap the show, what's your next level and what's your ultimate impact of how you want to influence the world?
My next impact is the same impact I've been on for the last 20 years, and it really 25 years. And it is to help people to understand that in any given moment, we all have a choice. We can continue to react from stress and fear and overwhelm, or we can stop, we can slow down, we can take 3 to 10 deep breaths, and we can choose love, because love is the most powerful healing force in the universe. So the only impact that I want to have is to help parents to understand that they can calm their own stress and their own fear, and that will help calm their child's stress and their child's fear, and they can grow more into love together. And everything is possible with love.
I love that you say that. That is probably the one single biggest thing that the bank system has done for me personally, is it has made me love people more deeply and more authentically. and eliminate the filter of judgment. Where certain codes would typically annoy me or rub me wrong, now I see them in their natural habitat and I absolutely love them. I love watching the blueprint dot the I's and cross the T's and read all the fine print before they sign. I love the action who's like, who cares? Let's go, put on our warrior paint. We're gonna take on the world.
Can I speak to that real quick?
Yeah.
Because what's happening is when you can externalize the values of another person and the behaviors of another person, you're no longer personalizing it in a way that makes you feel threatened. And when you're not feeling threatened, then your limbic system relaxes. When your limbic system can relax, not only can your prefrontal cortex, your thinking center of your brain, become active, but your heart can open up. And so then I can love someone who's being detailed because it's not threatening to me, because I know that that's a part of their value system and what they need to feel safe. And that's so powerful.
That's so huge. I love it. I mean, we deconstruct your own code, action. You're going to drive this thing and you're going to overcome every single obstacle that's in your way. You're dropping terms, scientific terms, the studies that you've been doing, the precortical, my gosh, how do you even say it?
Cortex.
Prefrontal cortex. Good grief. The dopamine, the oxytocin, like you've got your system dialed in. But here's the cool part. Under stress, your nurturing is what gets activated. And I think maybe some of the stress around the whole concept of the foster care system and finding that ultimate home is what's driving your heart to go lead this mission, to really make people matter, to make kids matter. Last question of our show, and then I want people to know how to find you, because we're going to do some stuff together. What would it mean for you? What would the world look like if you were able to disseminate love and to have these kids feel love? What do you think would be the ripple impact as a result of that?
Oh, the world would transform. All the adults would slow down. We wouldn't get less done. We would be more present and more mindful in doing it, which means then we would be modeling a new vibration, a new frequency, and a new energy to our children. And by modeling that new frequency to our children, we're now elevating our children to not have to be in survival, but to be able to thrive and to be able to grow and to be able to love one another and to realize that we're not threats to one another. And so the whole paradigm of the universe would shift if we could do that.
Wow. This is a great way to influence humanity, way to set up the next generation. Bryan, thank you for coming on my show. Tell our audience how they can get a hold of you, how they can get your book.
Yeah, probably the easiest is to follow me on Instagram, Bryan Post Official, and it's Bryan with a Y. And then feartolove.com is my website, so you can get books and everything. And you can Google me, it's all over.
Awesome. Well, you heard it right here on our show, Influence Unlocked. This is Bryan Post. He's out here making a difference. Get a hold of him, read his book, share the love, literally, grab a copy of it, and help us to help him make kids matter. Bryan, thank you for being on our show. Please like, follow, subscribe, and get this shared out there with the people that you know. Let's make people matter. Let's make kids matter and take it to the bank.